Well, hello everyone. My name is Nelson Lee, and we have a special show for you today. This is a new program with TOG. This is Real Talk with Nelson. And as I've told you in the past, we have a lot of different programs that we're going to be doing with this new channel with TOG. And this is one of them. It's Real Talk with Nelson. We're going to do a whole lot of different things on this channel. Um, we're going to have live breaking news, and as I've told you, if we start action in Israel, in support of Israel with Iran, we will definitely go live breaking news there. And you'll see something along the lines of this pop up on your Facebook pages or your YouTube pages or whatever you're following us on there. But if you see that pop up, then you know that something's breaking news is happening and you're going to want to follow us. But today we have Real Talk, and this is where we'll be interviewing real people with real news. And today we have a special guest, my brother from another mother, Jeff Goldman, also known as the Hebrew Hammer. Hey, brother, how you doing?
Very, very good, Nelson. Glad for you to be on the show, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, for those of you who don't know Jeff, he is a buddy of mine. We've known each other. Well, we're going to date ourselves since 1987. That's quite
Long
a
time.
long time. Yeah. He was actually just up at my house, just up in God's country, uh, 4 days ago, 3 days ago. Some,
3 days ago. Yeah, we left Monday, so yes,
yeah,
3 days ago.
3 days ago. So yeah, so he is now back in purgatory, hell, whatever you want to call it, whatever Houston is. Uh, and so,
Hot and humid,
yeah,
Nelson. That's what.
yeah, it's hot and humid. So I want to share a scripture real quick. And this is, I shared this in one of the other videos. This comes from First Chronicles 12:32. And this is why I always tell people out there to get out of your echo chamber. This is something Jeff and I have talked about a lot. First Chronicles 12:32, and most of you see it on your screen right now. It says, "Of Issachar, men who have had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do." And my brother from another mother here is, we don't know what tribe you're from, but you could be of Issachar, right? I mean,
I could.
you
I
could.
might be.
You may be. Who knows, right? So, men who have understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. And so we're gonna before we get into the nitty gritty, Jeff. I'm gonna just take you off camera here real quick, and I'm gonna read some things before we get into the news. I'm gonna kind of get into the talking points memo real quick. Uh, I want to read some X news first and foremost. So this is what we're going to talk about. So this is straight from Twitter. This is beyond parody because you guys are going to see some of this, especially in the private channel. This is kind of beyond parody. Caroline Levitt just just announced that Trump will make his decision whether to strike Iran within the next 2 weeks. And if some of you guys don't know why that's funny, you will know why that's funny. And Jeff and I'll talk about it here. So we'll know. Mehdi Hassan tweeted out, "We'll know when he's attacking Iran about the same time we get his health care plan." So we'll explain why that's funny. Uh, Another thing is Iran has arrested 18 more Mossad agents operating within their country. There's actually a very interesting video out there. Maybe in one of my updates, I will uh, show a video that I've got of them actually tracking down on the streets, not on the streets, it's actually on kind of a rural highway of a Mossad agent. They're arresting him. Sucks to be those guys, but this is when you get into this world, this is what you end up with more likely than not. Uh, President Trump has received a new intel briefing from the National Security Council team. Um, then also, 5,000 people are homeless since the outbreak of the war with Iran. And this is interesting, and this is what we'll talk about also. The IDF suspects that Iran is now using MIRVs. There is an interesting little picture here of, and they're not very sophisticated. They're actually small munitions that have been found in central Israel. So they look like they've put some of these MIRVs on their ballistic missiles. So as we get into the talking points memo, Iran and Israel, it's no longer a shadow war. Iran is using some hypersonic missiles, the Fatah class. They speeds. If you haven't seen this, guys, on the videos, it's fascinating to watch these things come in, dozens of miles above, and then all of a sudden they accelerate to about Mach 13 to Mach 15. That's excess of 10,000 miles an hour, and they have these evasive trajectory shifts, and that makes most of our intercept systems and Israel's intercept systems ineffective because you just can't intercept something going that fast. Um, there's also a growing debate within U.S. leadership on whether the strike is justified right now. Some of you may have seen this interview with Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. So there's a lot of conflict going on right now in the Trump camp between the neocons, the forever war camp, and the MAGA camp that are the No More Wars camp, and that is like the Steve Bannon, the Tucker Carlsons, the Marjorie Taylor Greens. And on the other side, you got the Tom Cottons, the Lindsey Grahams, the Mike Waltzes, which are always let's always go to war. Um, President Trump is holding back, and now we just see 2 more weeks. Who knows? But Russia and China are not idle bystanders. And we know from a prophetic point of view that these guys are major players in the end time events. And we're going to discuss that as the channel goes on. But I want to tell everybody, all the viewers out there, for those of you who are prophetically minded, whether the strike is needed, whether it's not needed, all those are peripheral arguments. They're in the peripheral. They really, those of you who keep a biblical worldview, who cares? It's not which side wins. Okay, it's not who cares whether you're Tucker Carlson, which is saying, why are we doing this, or you're Ted Cruz saying, we can't let them have a nuke. We're going to explain why it's happening now. The do it or not do it argument is stupid from the biblical worldview. It's pushing the narrative because the true question is not whether the strike is justified. The true question is, are we crossing into the next phase of the biblical timeline? That's what you need to be asking. So we bring Hebrew Hammer back into our interview. So Jeff, what do we make of all this? What do you make of all this? And before I want to say I'm lifting up I know you can't see it, but we're going to fix that. I'm lifting up my Sweeney Phillips 66 Complex coffee mug, willed to be by my grandfather who retired from Sweeney Complex, and I've had so many family members. My Aunt Mary, hopefully you're watching this, and so many others who have worked there, and I'm sipping my nice warm cup of coffee because it's cold outside here in Roan Mountain, Tennessee. So, Jeff, while I warm up, you cool down and tell me what to make of all this.
Well, there is definitely a lot going on, and it is a lot to digest. We're getting a lot of contradictory information. Some things don't make a whole lot of sense. The news coming out just recently in the last few minutes, literally about, I find this hard to believe that it's going to take President Trump 2 weeks to decide whether he wants to launch back. This does not make any sense to me. And of course, what we're going to be focusing on, I think we're going to let the Israelis handle most of what they're doing right now. But the one thing that they obviously need us to help them do is to attack the Fordo plant, which is very deep on the ground. Parts of it are a half mile. There's even some thoughts of if the bunker busters we do have, which are 30,000-pound bombs, we're the only ones that have it.
Right.
We're the only ones that have planes that can deliver it. Would that even work?
Right.
With that being said, the Israelis, just recently I read today, said they don't need the United States to help do that, which does not make any sense to me because here's my thing. If you believe the if you believe Netanyahu at his word that the reason they're doing this is not regime change, which I don't believe, and that it's to eliminate their nuclear threat, to me, that would be the first thing that you would hit.
Right.
Why would you wait a week into this to go after that plant, allowing them to maybe move things out, move things around, harden it even more than it is? So for them to say we don't need the U.S., we'll go it alone. In fact, there was a statement, I think, by the Israeli Defense Minister Katz just within the last couple hours that said that we basically need to get an answer from the U.S. very, very soon. He didn't specify what time frame that was, or we're going to go it alone. I'm not buying that. I think they would have done it already. They, as far as I know, unless they're going to try some kind of a on the ground raid, which is fraught with all kinds of complications and is extreme risk, they do not have the military capability from the air to take that site out. They just don't.
Do you
The
think
biggest bombs. Go ahead, Nelson.
do you think that maybe this 2 week thing is a ruse? Maybe to you think it's a fugazi? It's
Well, I mean, it's possible. A lot of people are saying that we played them last week by dragging out these talks, and the Israelis attacked them, what, Thursday night, even though, at least on paper, we were planning to meet with them on Sunday. That never happened, obviously. The other thing that's interesting is that the Iranian foreign minister tomorrow is flying to Geneva to meet with the E3. The
okay.
E3 are the three original European countries that were involved in the original 2015 JCPOA. And I really think that that is the last best shot for this to be negotiated. I think that if that turns out to be a big nothing burger, I think it's going to signal to the United States and to the Israelis that there will not be a negotiated settlement. And I don't even think the Israelis want a negotiated settlement at this point. I really don't.
Can you
I mean,
bust the myth for a lot of our viewers out there that the Iranians were not following the JCPOA?
they were following it. They were following it to the letter. Um, the thing
And
about it is
and
when
real
Trump,
quick, for those of you who don't know you, uh, are you a liberal or conservative?
I am conservative minded for sure on most issues, but not all.
Right.
I could
Let's
swing
that's
in the
just
middle on a lot of things.
right, but for the most part, you're conservative. You're not a liberal. I'm not a liberal. Because well, I think
No.
with this channel, I want full transparency. That's the one thing that's going to separate this channel from pretty much everything else that you see out there. Okay, that everything else anybody else sees out there, we're going to be very transparent about who we are, and there is no bull on this channel. Okay, that's one thing that Jeff and I, because Jeff actually helped me set up the concept of this channel as we talked about this. How long have we been talking about this channel for, Jeff?
Well over a year.
Well over a year, that's right. And the one thing that
Mhm.
we, TOG, we really want truth. We want people to understand the truth of what's happening in this world, okay? And not their talking points, their echo chambers, their biases. And everybody's got a bias. Jeff has a bias. I have a bias. Biases are not necessarily bad, but when they start clouding your judgment, and start clouding your resources that you're getting, then they're bad. So, with that, I want everybody to listen very carefully to what Jeff is saying about the JCPOA.
Yes, I mean that was actually not a bad deal. When the problem with it is when Trump pulled out of it in 2018, I believe,
Yes.
um, there was nothing to replace it, and the Europeans were actually against it. The other issue I have with what he did back then, it makes our word very, very lacking. In other words, to me, it's hard for another country, whether it's Russia, Iran, China, to engage in an agreement with us, not knowing if in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, another president might come in and just rip it up. So why would you put it out there if you're not going to have the guarantee that we are going to uphold it? And here's the other issue with the nuclear thing. to me, there's no doubt the Iranians have been a destabilizing factor in the region for years, for
Absolutely.
decades.
They, you and I, real quick, you and I have talked about this since 2003 with the quote unquote Bush doctrine.
Correct.
That you and I were, and I firsthand, you had gotten out of the military in 2000, and you joined the military in what year?
1979.
1979, and I joined in 1987, and you got out in the year 2000, and I got out in the year 2018. And you and I were both adamantly opposed to going into Iraq because of the Bush doctrine. Because we were both saying at the time, if the Bush doctrine is really the Bush doctrine, if we're going after state actors of terrorism, then why aren't we going after Iran?
That's right.
That was exactly what our point was. Why are we going after Iraq? We knew that and we'll talk about this in the TOG channel. We're going to lay out the evidence of this in the TOG channel. There's a lot of evidence that all the evidence was manufactured against Iraq being linked to Al Qaeda. We knew that at the time. You and I knew that at the time. I knew that at the time.
Yep.
And if we were truly going to go after the Bush doctrine, that we should be going after Iran. But at the same time, we also knew, and it has been the Ayatollah, his stance that he was not going to reestablish his nuclear program. But again, and again, as I've said in the previous video, they have been months or weeks away since 2003.
Even before that, Nelson, if you look back when Netanyahu was prime minister in the 90s, we heard over and over again that they were, 1 year away, 2 years away, 3 years away. Who cannot forget the 2012 famous UN speech that he made where he held up the
little bomb
poster board with the bomb that showed them
the Acme Wile E. Coyote bomb. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I remember that well.
That was 13 years ago. The U.S. National Intelligence Directorate just came out, Tulsi Gabbard went before Congress just a few months ago, I think back in March, and said that based on U.S. intelligence, not Israeli intelligence, not Russian intelligence, not Chinese intelligence, U.S. intelligence, that the Iranians were not pursuing a nuclear weapon. That was just 3 months ago.
And now what's happened to her?
She's been sidelined. They are basically sidelining her because she is not a neocon. She does not want this. Also, Vance has been kind of pushed out. And what I've looked at recently, the CENTCOM commander, Corellia, he basically is running the show, even over Hegseth. He has basically been given a lot of free reign, more than he should, in my opinion, to make decisions. He is a big time war hawk. He's going to retire this summer. And he's got a very storied, past. He definitely is on board with this, and he has a lot of influence, and he has a lot of influence with Trump.
Right.
So, in my opinion, with the president's, it may be the last person that has his ear as to what he's actually going to do. And that's what makes things so hard to look at and figure out what is actually going to happen.
And the other thing you and I have talked about, and I will tell you, be honest, and I think Jeff will admit this is more my wheelhouse than his, is that there are a lot of theological, how can I put this? We've talked about this. How can I put this? There are a lot of theological influences in the Trump administration.
Huckabee is one of them.
Huckabee, Hegseth, Paula White. You've got a lot of people that I'm gonna highlight in the apostates realm that have an influence, and their influence is not necessarily geopolitics. It's theological. There's a thing called the Esther project that Jeff and I have talked about. And what these people are doing is they're pushing a plan of Armageddon necessarily because they want to. They are. The best way to put it is how. Are you comfortable talking about the 12 or Shias or the Shia Islam? Are you comfortable enough explaining that to our guests?
I'll let you take the lead on that. You mean the difference between Shia and Sunni?
Not necessarily just explaining the craziness of Shia Islam.
I'll let you run with that. I know what
Okay.
you're talking about. I
Yeah.
think you can articulate it a little bit better than
So
I can.
Shia Islam differs from Sunni Islam. And one of the things that for those of you who have sat in my eschatological classes know that I've taught a lot about the difference between Sunni and Shia Islam. One of the differences is Shia believes in an apocalyptic vision. They believe that, and we'll get a lot more detail in the future TOG videos, but they believe that they have to push an apocalyptic narrative. That that if you want to know why Iran does what they do, it's because there are. This is what happens when you have theology running your country. This is why we can't have Christian nationalism in our country, because when you have theology running your country, it drives you to crazy places. Okay, this is the wisdom of the founding fathers when they said, no, we're not going to have a church and state. And if y'all want to argue with me on that, bring it on. Nelson at ahf-i.com. Bring it on, big boy. I'll put you on the right side of the screen just like Jeff is right now. Okay, this is the wisdom of the founding fathers because they had seen it before. When you have an apocalyptic vision like the Shia, see, they believe we have to have this, and they have to be on the verge of defeat to bring the Mahdi about to save them. He'll come out of a well somewhere, and I'll do more research on that. I used to know it, but now I don't, and I'll relearn it. But in the Trump administration, and we will, guess what? I will prove this to you, okay, with their own words. In the Trump administration, there's a group of people extremely close to the president who have this same apocalyptic vision. They're called Reconstructionists. They're post-millennials, post-millennialists. They believe that they have to do the same exact thing, except for they're not bringing the Mahdi back, they're bringing Jesus back, okay? And in order to do that, certain things have to happen. The temple has to be rebuilt. The certain things have to happen, and Gog Magog is one of them. All right, Ezekiel 38 and 39 being fulfilled, Psalm 83 being fulfilled, the temple being rebuilt has to be fulfilled. There is a certain list of things, and that is one of the reasons Mike Huckabee is over there. That is the one reason Pete Hegseth didn't get fired after Signalgate. All right, even though he should have been, because he is a key factor in this apocalyptic vision. He belongs to the CERC church. It's a Reconstructionist church, and we're going to prove all of this to you. You think I'm just blowing smoke? I'm not. I'm going to prove it to you with facts. And that is one of the things that Jeff and I, when we're trying to figure these things out, you cannot account for somebody's theology in politics. You just can't. And so where all this leads, see, these guys think that they are doing it to bring Jesus back. Well, guess what? They are, but not in the way that they think they are. They're doing it in a different way. It's not going to work. Bottom line is, brother, it's not going to work out the way they think it's going to.
Right. Just two more points I
Sure.
want to bring up real quick with the Iranian war. I mean, you've heard this said many times. It's very easy to start a war. Not so hard to get out of it. The Israelis, I think, are learning the hard way that a lot of what the Iranians were saying as far as weapon systems they had, that everybody kind of scoffed at, hypersonic missiles.
Right.
No way they have them. Now they're using independently targeted entry vehicles. The Israelis have the upper hand here. I'm not saying that that's not true. They have total air dominance, but I mean, they are limited too onto what they can do. But as you saw last night when they hit the hospital, that was with a very big warhead, and it was just by sheer luck. The surgical wing on the top floor was moved just yesterday. That would have been a devastating attack with dozens of people killed had they not done that. Maybe call that a miracle. They're calling it a miracle. I'm calling it good planning on someone's part. And that's why that resulted in, you know, a lot of rubble, but only people that were hurt. They got very lucky on that. And I think you're going to see a few more surprises.
I was just
I don't
about to
think
say that. I think, and that's a great segue into what you and I have talked about. The Iranians have an ultimate trick up their sleeve, and you and I have talked about this. I broached this with you, I believe, the night you got home. Um,
mhm, it's very
they,
possible.
they're, and let me explain what that is. Um, they cannot produce a nuclear weapon, but they don't have to. Okay, and if something's going to draw us in quicker and full force, all right, and it doesn't even have to be. It doesn't even have to be real. It could be a how can we put it?
The threat
A threat. The
of
threat of, or the it could be a false flag.
exactly.
And this is what we're going to tell the audience. It could be a dirty bomb. They have 400 kilograms of enriched uranium stuck deep underground. All they have to do is, we now know they have hypersonics. All they have to do is stick that uranium that's enriched at 60%. Now, I've already run simulations on this, guys. I've got some pretty sophisticated means to do this. Jeff has seen it firsthand. Is it sophisticated or
Uh,
is it not?
it's for yes, I think it's a very semi. It's pretty accurate as to what the end result would be if they chose to do so, and that would be a
Yeah,
desperation move on their part. But I would not absolutely put it past them if they feel like the regime is going to collapse.
yeah.
They,
If they feel like there's regime change, and that they're definitely going after their top leaders in regime change, then this would be what we call their Samson option. And I feel if we feel that they're doing that, then it's all, Katie bar the door. They could easily put that uranium on the end of ballistic hypersonic missiles, and it could easily cause tens of thousands of casualties over the next 6 months. Because now, and I know many of you have heard this threat, dirty bombs, just one dirty bomb. When I was at Northcom and when I was at U.S. Army North, we did dirty bomb, just one little dirty bomb um, uh, exercises all the time. Literally every spring and sometimes in the fall, we did these, and they were just one. And just the one little bomb that was, you know, 100 pounds of explosives, the amount of damage. And it makes that area totally uninhabitable. And now you're talking about hypersonic missiles with, or even if they get intercepted, you've got the fallout of,
mhm,
and it's actually in some cases worse than a small,
mhm.
because you make the area uninhabitable. Okay.
Yep.
And Israel's not very large. And if you barraged Israel with that, you make the whole area uninhabitable. However, and this is where I want to end it. We're coming up on 30 minutes. This is where I want to end it. I don't believe it's going to get there. I don't believe it will get there. Because I believe in my biblical theology that we've got to come to an area of peace. We've got to come to a false peace. And that's, what First Thessalonians 5:3 says. When everybody is saying peace and safety, there's going to come a time when everybody's saying peace and safety. And we know, according to Ezekiel 38 and 39, that when this final invasion does come, Israel is sitting in a land of unwalled villages, right? Well, guess what, Jeff? You know more about Israel than anybody I know. Are they unwalled villages and sitting in peace right now?
No.
No, they're not there yet. And again, we're bumping up against this world of AI, where, and and I'm going to leave this hanging out there. I heard somebody make an AI expert make this statement, and I'm just going to let it sit out there because this is the world of AI. And this gives me little goosebumps. I got goosebumps still after hearing this 2 days ago. AI is the last invention that mankind will ever need to make. Think about that. That's scary because after AI reaches AGI, artificial general intelligence, and then it within 6 months creates a super intelligence out of itself and exponentially grows to where we're no longer anything in its eyes but ants, which is, by the way, guys, coming before 2030. Some people have moved this date up to 2027, 2026, but it's somewhere in the next 5 years. By the time this happens, mankind, even if it's a benevolent AI, and this is called godlike intelligence, by the way, because that's how powerful it is, mankind no longer will ever invent anything because AI invents it all. Now, for those of you who scoff at that, you need to stay involved in this channel because I'm going to show you what's going on. Because if you scoff at that, it's just because you are AI ignorant. You don't know what's coming. And that is the wall we are bumped up against. With all of this, it's bumped up against a wall called AI. And something has to give. Something's going to have to give. Something's got to break. Or the Bible's not true. And guess what? I believe the Bible wholeheartedly is true. So something's going to have to give. So Jeff, do you have any final thoughts on Israel, Iran, or Russia, Ukraine, or China and their involvement in all of this?
Let's keep the Russian-Ukraine thing on the sidelines for now.
Okay, let's make how about this? How about we'll do another interview on that in the next few days?
Yeah, let me just add one thing on the Israeli-Iranian thing. And contrary to what the Israelis are saying in public, regime change is obviously one of their main goals. I think what you're noticing is what you're not seeing. And at least up to this point, and I'm not saying it's not going to happen, you reach a tipping point and things can change very, very fast. You are not seeing any significant Iranian dissent demonstrations. The Israelis took over their TV station yesterday for a short period of time, and they were broadcasting anti-regime propaganda, or not propaganda, but anti-regime, messaging.
Right.
All afternoon. The Iranians finally were able to shut that down. I mean, obviously that is a main goal, and you're not seeing it. The other thing people might want to look at, the son of the Shah put out a video either today or yesterday that tries to rewrite history a little bit. It's just very interesting to listen to him. The Ayatollah did not come into Iran in a vacuum. There was a reason that the Shah fell.
Right.
And people, I'm not saying that the Iranian regime is a good regime. It is not, for all the obvious reasons. I would not want to live under such a society. But let's not kid ourselves and try to rewrite history. There's a reason that in 1979 the Shah was overthrown by the Iranian people.
That's right, and that's the exact same argument that you and I were making in 2003 when they said we're going to go over and make Iraq a democracy, and you and I went, ain't going to happen.
Real quick, yeah, the Shah, or the son of the Shah, in his speech talks about democracy in Iran, and I kind of scoffed. I'm like, when was that? Because it never happened.
It wasn't even under the Shah. Yeah, they looked real Western, but
no. So
yeah.
All right.
Well, brother, it's great to have you.
Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to being back on whenever we can get it set up again real soon.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, that concludes our talk here, and I thank Jeff for joining us, and I thank you for staying and watching this interview with us. And until next time, may God richly bless you.